Casper is the sitting president of the American Conservatives of Color for the time being. He is also the director of the Denver operation of the American Conservatives of Color and the Rocky Mountain Black Conservatives for the time being until we find his replacement.
No problem. No problem.
Because before he reaches the end of the campaign, he'll probably have to step out of that role, and once he wins this race, he'll definitely have to step out of that role because he won't live in Denver anymore. He'll live in Washington, D.C. President of the American Conservatives of Color, Colorado candidate for House District number 1, and my friend, Casper Stock.
Thanks, thank you, Jared.
Well, I just couldn't bear the thought of people living in.
All right, let me get that off. So I was excited and sad all at the same time as he was saying all that because this is a daunting task. However, I'm up for it. We're going to make this happen in a big way. Hey, before I get into the presentation, I got to tell you about Chuck Norris, and you can insert Derek in for Chuck Norris anytime you want. All right. So this is kind of cool. So I too was once a male trapped in a female body, but then I was born. Chuck Norris can write on chalk using a blackboard. That's pretty impressive. When Alexander Bell invented the telephone, he had 3 missed calls from Chuck Norris. There used to be a street name after Chuck Norris, but it was changed because nobody crossed Chuck Norris and lived. Chuck Norris has already been to Mars. That's why there's no signs of life on Mars. Chuck Norris died 20 years ago. Death hasn't built up the courage to let him know. Chuck Norris and Superman once fought each other on a bet. The loser had to start wearing his underwear on the outside of his pants. Chuck Norris counted to infinity twice. That's pretty impressive. Chuck Norris can cut through a hot knife with butter. That's pretty impressive. When the boogeyman goes to sleep every night, he checks underneath his bed in the closet for Chuck Norris. And Chuck Norris once got bit by a rattlesnake. After 3 days of pain and agony, the rattlesnake died. That's pretty impressive. That's Chuck Norris. He's going to actually come back into this presentation a little bit later, but I appreciate you guys humoring me on that. So, I was born a progressive liberal, in a progressive liberal household. My father was really heavily into politics, and when I was growing up, I really didn't like the whole political thing because he would drag us out and he'd put signs in our hands, and we had to wear, the T-shirts and all that stuff, and he was running for office. He ran as a Democrat. That's my father, Gail Stockham. And it says up here, this is interesting, I found this article on the internet, and it says, Brother Gail Stockham made political history by becoming the first black person to win a seat in Stratford Town Council. So this could be repeating history. You never know, right? So in that household, by the time I was 17, I hated all things Republican and most things white. It's just the way it was, okay? When I went into the Air Force, this is me off duty. I'm in the Air Force at the time with that afro. Some of you may not understand how that happened, but some of you do. When you have a press it down and you wear a stocking cap all night, you're good, right? I'm telling you, it works. At least it worked back then. This shirt that I was wearing is a sweatshirt with my father's picture on it. It was one of his campaign sweatshirts. And what you can't see in here is I'm looking at my I'm looking at a birthday cake that my wife at the time made. And I am sad at 18 years old. Look at that sad face. It's my birthday, and I'm sad. And this is me on duty. It's kind of hard to see that picture, but that's me on duty. So when I went into the military, I had the mindset that I wanted to get as much as I could from my country. It wasn't about me doing anything for my country. It was about what my country could do for me. All right. So when I went in, anything I could get, I went for. Right. So one of the things that I went for was a program that allowed for minorities to be in the program to become an officer. Now, of course, we want anyone that is eligible to become an officer, right? But this program allowed for minorities to get lower grades and stay in the program. Now that, on the surface, lower grades to stay in the program, yeah, they wanted to get a bunch of minorities in. But the challenge with that is we're dumbing down our officers. We want our officers to be the sharpest, brightest people on the planet. Why would we dumb down our officers, right? But that's what that program did. So I'm in class one day, and, I'm sorry, let me back up. So when Reagan got elected, the first thing his administration did was cut that program, right? So I was in class one day fussing about the Republicans cutting programs for these poor minority people like myself, right? And I caught myself mid-sentence or mid-thought, and I said, what are you talking about? You're in class, there's nothing wrong. All they did was remove the safety net out from underneath you. As long as you get good grades, which we all should be trying to get anyway, is good grades, you can stay in the program, right? And when I started to realize that was the first time in my mind that snapped. I said, wait a minute. All these programs, even though they have good intentions in the beginning, or at least they seem to have good intentions in the beginning, they all wind up just like that program. They dumb down the situation. We're dumbing down our citizens in our inner cities by all these different programs. I started to really analyze these programs, and I became very conservative over time. In fact, I became so conservative, I couldn't vote for the average Republican because they weren't conservative enough for me. Right? That's how conservative I was. So, McCain, come on, give me a break. I definitely couldn't vote for Obama because he was, of course, not conservative. But I couldn't even vote for the Republican candidate because he was not conservative and still is not conservative. Right? That's right. So I'm going along and I'm watching all this political stuff happening. I was a political junkie in the sense that I would be very aware of who was running, what was going on. I was very informed. I just didn't really care, right? So I'm watching all this unfold, and then for some reason, I get invited to a luncheon that Herman Cain put on. So Herman Cain comes into town. This is right after he had kind of stepped out of the race, but he comes in town and he's doing this jobs fair thing, and there was 150 of us plus in the room. And Herman Cain, he bought us all lunch. That's how you got a class act, when he buys everybody lunch, right? So, have you ever been in church and you felt like the pastor was preaching directly to you? Yes. Yeah. So I'm in this meeting, and I'm enjoying the fact that Herman Cain's speaking and all this stuff, right? And it seems like everything he said was directed directly at me. And he was talking about voting. We have to vote. He said, look, my candidate didn't win. There's me. I didn't win. However, we have to vote. And I'm saying to myself, hey, no way in heck I'm voting for Romney. He's not conservative enough for me. I can't vote for Romney, right? So he kept on, and then afterwards, I met him. I shook his hand, took this picture. And he grabs me, and grabs my hand and won't let go. And he says, young man, we have to vote. I'm like, oh my God. Now what am I going to do? Herman Cain looked me, and I grabbed my hand and said, I got to vote. Plus I took a picture with him, right? Got to vote. I said, okay, I'll vote. So I vote for Romney. Not happy about it, but I vote for Romney. 10:30 our time. It's over. The race is over. Romney loses. I'm like, what the heck happened? I voted. He should have won. This is crazy. So 10:30 our time, it's over. And if we don't vote for the lesser of two evils, we will surely be governed by the greater of two evils. And so I decided at that time, I'm going to always vote, even though I'm going to have to hold my nose sometime. Even if it's Jeb Bush, I'm going to have to hold my nose and probably be sick for a week afterwards. But I'm still going to vote for Jeb Bush if he becomes the nominee. Because it's I get it. Trust me. I understand, but it's the lesser of two evils. So those things either make you bitter or they make you better. Well, you guys maybe don't know me well enough to know that I doubled down after that. I said, oh, it's on now. I'm rolling up my sleeves. I'm saying, I'm going to get busy now and do something. I don't know what. I have no idea what, but I know I'm going to do something. So I'm looking around for anybody that's doing something for real. Not just meeting, not just saying the right things, but actually doing something. And I come across this guy. you know this guy? And I see his Facebook page, and I'm reading some of the stuff, and I'm looking at the videos. I'm saying, wow, kind of impressive, in a really sick kind of way. It's kind of impressive. So I'm saying, I got to meet this guy, right? So I load my wife in the car. We come down to this meeting in this very same room. And he was talking, and everything was great. And then after the meeting, I say, hey, Derek, you don't know me. I'm Casper Stockton from Denver, Colorado. And I really like what you're doing. I love the concept. I want to help. Any way I can, I want to help. He said, great. You said you live in Denver? I said, yes. He said, you are now the Denver chapter president. Whoa, slow your roll, Parker. I'm not, I don't want to be the president. I just want to hand out some flyers. You got some flyers or something I can hand out? Maybe make a phone call or two or something? Oh, no. I need somebody to run the Denver office. So make a long story short, I started to do that. And we started holding meetings in Denver. My wife would cook and make, all that stuff, and everybody would come up, and it was great. But Derek, earlier in the year, decided to run for vice chair, as he mentioned. So he stepped up, ran for vice chair, and won. And by the way, that was an impressive win. Any of you that were there or heard about it, he was one of 4 or 5 candidates that was running, and they told us, the experts, okay, watch out for the experts, because they told us that it would be several rounds of voting before anybody would emerge as the winner. They didn't know Derek, right? So
They didn't know God.
They didn't know God, exactly. So the first round, Derek wins, vice chair, boom.
Wow.
And then he calls me a couple weeks later and says, hey, guess what? You have to step up now to be the president of the American Conservatives of Color. And I'm like, okay. So I did that. Now, that kind of started this thing in motion. So then what happened was, it's okay, let me tell you. So that's some of the pictures. We've been doing different events, Cinco de Mayo. We did the Day of Freedom with Elbert Guillory came in town. And I met some very awesome people like Sarah Palin. Now, people have no idea about Sarah Palin. They think she's stupid. They think all these different things. She is one sincere lady. I got some quality time to spend with her. You guys know you're there. And her and her husband, Todd, she was talking with my daughter, Faith, there. And she got teared up talking to Faith because she has a son who has Down syndrome. And my daughter, Faith, also has Down syndrome. So she got choked up a little bit. And I told her, it's okay, don't worry about it. So then she gives me a hug. This is a real hug, people. This is how you hug for real. Okay, that's how you. She grabbed you by the head. It's all in. She's into it. but her husband was right there, so it was cool. And she even put us up on. That's a picture of my sister, Sarah Palin, my daughter, and my wife. And then she even put us up on her Facebook page. Gave us some up on that. So that was awesome, right? ACFC has a plan, 5-point plan. You guys know about it. You've heard about it for years. So we've been out traveling around the state and even different states delivering this message and this plan. It's a simple plan. The other side's been doing it for 60 years. This is not new, but it works. Join up and show up. Join those different minority organizations and show up. Form a clergy committee. I'm working on that. We have a prayer brunch we're doing right now. Develop a calendar of events and start attending those events. I've been doing that as well. Begin holding town hall meetings in the minority precincts. That's for elected officials. So once I am elected as congressman, and I will be, once that happens, I'll start doing that. And then attend church services in major minority communities, and I'll be doing that as well. That's the plan. It's a simple plan. Here's the thing. We did an event, this is Cinco de Mayo in 2013. That's a Democrat booth, midday. Midday, not the end of the day, not 7 in the morning, midday. Nobody's home. They're not there. They set up, they put all the signs up, and then they go home. You know why? Because they can. They can go home because the minority community is not paying attention. Right? So when we go, we have to be there all day, and we are there all day. I'm inside the booth, midday. Midday, hanging out in the booth. Nobody's home. We can win this, people. We can do it. But we've got to all chip in and start stepping up. This is our booth. We've got games for the kids. We're having a ball, laughing and joking around. I got to tell you this. We were at a Cinco de Mayo event a couple of years ago, and we were having so much fun They called security on us 3 times because we were having too much fun, making too much noise. A political